anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar. These aren't just words anymore, they're categories, boxes that billions of people are being sorted into. And once you're in the box, a script begins. Diagnosis, medication, management, repeat. But here's the part no one talks about. What if your mental state isn't a disorder, but a response to a disordered world? What if the symptoms you carry are signals pointing to deep imbalance, not within you, but around you? See, in ancient traditions, mental unrest wasn't treated with labels. It was treated with initiation. It meant you were being called into a transformation, that your psyche was breaking not to collapse, but to rebuild around something real. But today, we don't initiate. We diagnose. We slap a name on your pain, prescribe a pill, and tell you to cope. No deep questioning, no root cause exploration, just symptom suppression wrapped in clinical language. And the most dangerous part? You start to believe the label. You begin to say, I have anxiety. I am bipolar. I'm broken. You repeat it, post about it, build identity around it. But what if you're not broken? What if you've just been lied to about what your mind is, what your emotions mean, and what healing actually looks like? Because when society defines your pain, it also defines your limits. And that's not medicine, that's mental programming. This is the illusion that your diagnosis is the beginning of your healing, when in truth, for many, it's the beginning of a lifelong script of dependency, confusion, and subtle obedience. So ask yourself, what if your mental health issue isn't a malfunction, but a message? Long before pharmaceutical ads flooded your screen, long before every emotion had a diagnostic code, there were cultures that treated mental unrest as sacred. In ancient Egypt, initiates who experienced intense emotional swings or visions weren't medicated. They were isolated and trained, taken into temples, given symbolic trials, taught to decode their mind, not silence it. In indigenous tribes around the world, what modern psychiatry might label as schizophrenia was seen as a spiritual emergence. The person was not ill. They were being called. In early yogic systems, what we now call depression wasn't seen as a chemical imbalance. It was viewed as a disconnect from Dharma, your soul's path fractured by a life out of alignment. And what did the shamans, mystics, and oracles do? They guided the individual into the experience, not away from it. They asked, what does your sadness want you to see? What is the root of your rage? What part of you is dying, so that something new can be born? They saw the breakdown not as pathology, but as the beginning of power. But today, you walk into a clinic, you speak your truth in a 15-minute window. You leave with a prescription and a label. No ritual, no depth, no meaning. Just maintenance. And slowly, you begin to lose connection with the deeper why. You no longer ask what your inner chaos is trying to tell you. You only ask how to shut it off. But the truth is, pain is not random. It's intelligent. It has language. It has purpose. And when we silence it too early, we miss the treasure buried beneath it. Because maybe your panic attacks aren't a malfunction, but your soul rejecting a life that's too small for you. Maybe your depressive episodes aren't just chemical, but energetic withdrawals from fake relationships, fake work, fake alignment. Maybe your numbness is a shield forged from years of emotional suppression. Not something wrong with your brain, but something wrong with what you've been forced to adapt to. And here's the most dangerous lie of all, that these reactions mean you're broken. No, they mean you're awake enough to feel in a world designed to keep you numb. Let's ask something dangerous. Who profits from your diagnosis? Think deeper. It's not just the pharmaceutical giants raking in billions annually. It's the entire structure, from insurance systems to institutions to therapists working under diagnostic frameworks designed to pathologize complexity. Because here's the quiet truth. If your pain stays mysterious, your treatment stays endless. You're told you're in recovery. But what are you recovering from? A neurochemical imbalance? A trauma with no clear origin? A lifelong disorder that nobody can definitively test for? Do you ever ask, why are these diagnoses permanent? Why is no one saying, you might outgrow this, you might evolve past this, let's find the root and dissolve it? Instead, you're given coping strategies. You're taught how to manage your condition, not transform it. You're told your brain is wired this way, like it's set in stone, and that mindset, that you are broken, chemically flawed, in need of lifelong management, becomes a core identity. But here's the twist. When you accept a diagnosis as your truth, you unconsciously start building your entire reality around it. You explain every emotion through it. You lower your expectations because of it. You give up on transformation and trade it for survival. And society rewards you for that. It calls you brave for managing your illness. It tells you you're doing your best. It gives you likes, sympathy, and a seat at the table of the chronically coping. But no one asks the real questions anymore. Who benefits from a population that feels powerless to its own mind? Who gains when millions believe they're forever broken? Who thrives when your healing is outsourced, commercialized, and scheduled into 50-minute appointments? This isn't to say mental health isn't real. It is. Pain is real. Trauma is real. But the idea that you are stuck, that your only hope is management, that's the illusion. Ancient systems saw the psyche as fluid, capable of collapse and rebirth, capable of full integration when given the right conditions. But modern systems, they fear that, because a fully integrated human is uncontrollable. They don't obey blindly. They don't suppress their truth. They don't fit in easily. So instead, they pathologize the very traits that mark awakening: sensitivity, emotional depth, visionary experiences, nonconformity, creative chaos. These aren't dysfunctions, they're the signs of evolution. And if you're feeling misunderstood by every framework you've been given, you're not failing, you're breaking free. So before we go further, ask yourself, is the system helping you heal, or just helping you adjust to something that's killing your soul? Because the next part isn't for the faint-hearted. In part 4, we expose the psychological programming built into the language of diagnosis, how it subtly rewires identity and keeps you locked in cycles of spiritual amnesia. And before we continue, if you're ready to reclaim your mind from the system that labeled it, subscribe now and hit the bell. Not just for this series, but because this is where the rewriting of your narrative truly begins. Let's talk about language, not just what you say, but what's been said to you, about you, over and over again, until you made it part of your story. Because a diagnosis isn't just a description, it's a spell. Every label you're given carries weight. You have generalized anxiety disorder. You're clinically depressed. You're neurodivergent. You have an emotional regulation disorder. Now ask yourself, how do these words feel in your body? Do they empower you, or do they quietly reduce you? You might not notice it at first, but over time, this language becomes the lens through which you interpret everything. Your fatigue must be the depression. Your sensitivity, part of the disorder. Your sudden clarity, a manic phase. The system gives you a vocabulary of limits, a psychological cage wrapped in medical authority, and once you speak from that place enough, your identity fuses with it. You forget who you were before the label, and more importantly, you stop exploring who you could become without it. This is no accident. The mental health system, as it's evolved, relies on semantic control. Define the symptoms, assign a code, attach a protocol, sustain the cycle. And when people begin healing outside that system, through shadow work, somatic release, plant medicine, spiritual reconnection, they're often told they're being reckless, unscientific, or in denial. Why? Because they're speaking a different language. One the system can't monetize. You see, once you reclaim your inner narrative, once you start saying, I'm not broken, I'm becoming, I'm not sick, I'm remembering, I'm not crazy, I'm waking up, you break the spell. The pharmaceutical model can't hold you anymore. The therapy model can't keep you circling symptoms. The clinical language loses its grip. And this is terrifying, not to you, but to the infrastructure built around your pain. Because once you stop defining yourself by your diagnosis, you start asking bigger questions. The system can't answer. Who profits from my shame? What systems made me feel unsafe to be myself? What version of me existed before I was labeled? That's why language matters, not just how it describes you, but how it shapes you. And if you want to reclaim your mind, you must reclaim your words first. Say this out loud. I am not my diagnosis. I am the one who observes it. Feel that shift? That's power returning. Let's break the final illusion that healing comes from outside you, that someone else knows better, that your case is in need of management by licensed professionals who never once asked you what your soul wants. Let's be brutally honest. The modern mental health system isn't built to create wholeness. It's built to create stability. And those aren't the same thing. Stability is just the absence of symptoms. Wholeness is the presence of self. And to reclaim the self, you don't just take medication or attend therapy sessions. You rebuild your mind from scratch, on your terms. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what happened to me? What am I suppressing? What part of me did I exile to survive? You stop defining emotions as disorders and start seeing them as messengers. Anxiety isn't just a glitch. It's the alarm of a life misaligned with truth. Depression isn't just darkness. It's the soul retreating from noise, craving depth, silence, remembrance. Mood swings aren't dysfunction. They're energy trying to break through systems too small to hold them. And healing? Real healing? It's messy. It doesn't always fit inside a timeline. It may include tears, rage, isolation, spiritual disorientation. But that's what rebirth looks like. You don't fix your mind. You strip away everything that distorted it. You do shadow work. You sit with your inner child. You breathe through trauma without numbing it. You reconnect with your body, your breath, your own intuition, which, by the way, you were told to ignore. Because here's the hard truth. You were never taught to trust yourself. You were taught to defer, to comply, to be a good patient, a good client, a manageable soul. But ancient systems didn't teach self-suppression. They taught self-initiation. They trained you to become your own healer, to master the terrain of your psyche, to feel every emotion as sacred, instructive, transformational. And once you return to that ancient knowing, you no longer need permission to heal. You no longer wait for a diagnosis to give your pain validity. You no longer seek identity in suffering. You realize that your mind was never sick, just starved of truth. Let's sit with that, not just as a thought experiment, but as a spiritual detonation. Imagine your mind like a mirror, but every time someone gave you a diagnosis, they stuck a word to the glass. Depressed, anxious, disordered, too emotional, not stable, imbalanced. Over time, you didn't just look through the mirror, you looked at the labels. And when the reflection didn't match your spirit, you questioned your spirit, not the mirror. That's the trap. We mistake reflection for reality. But the truth? You are not a diagnosis. You are not a symptom. You are not a case study. You are a soul navigating a system designed to clip your wings and sell you cages as safety. You're told healing is about becoming functional, but maybe healing is about becoming free. Free to feel deeply without being labeled unstable. Free to speak your truth without being seen as aggressive. Free to collapse when you need to without being medicated into silence. Free to rise again, with clarity so sharp it cuts the lies in half. This is the secret the system won't tell you. Your pain is sacred data. Your confusion is a signal. Your breakdown is a bridge. And your symptoms? They're the sound of your soul refusing to be buried. So now I ask you, who would you be if you never heard the words mental illness? If no one ever told you how you were supposed to feel, think, act, function? Would you still seek help? Or would you seek truth? Would you medicate your instincts or listen to them? Would you numb the fire or finally let it burn clean through the illusion? This isn't about denying suffering. It's about refusing to be owned by it. You were not made to be manageable. You were not born to be subdued. You are not here to shrink so others feel comfortable around your intensity. You are here to remember, to rebuild, to rise. And that starts with one honest question. What part of you have you abandoned just to be considered normal? Drop your answer in the comments, because when one person reclaims their story, they give silent permission for 1,000 others to do the same. And if this cracked something open in you, there's more. Check the next video. This isn't the end of the healing, it's the end of forgetting.